tonight's meeting of Carson City's Park and Rec will come to order. We're waiting for a quorum, so we're going to immediately recess for 5 minutes in the hopes that our stray members show up. So we're in recess right now. I apologize to everybody in the audience.
I do know that Brett Long and Joe Cassiopo will not be here tonight, but those are the only two that I'm aware of.
So we're just waiting for Sean or Robert?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, we're back on the record. Madam Secretary, will you call roll, please?
Chairperson Keever.
Here.
Vice Chair Curtis. Here. Commissioner Bagwell. Here. Commissioner Cassiopo. Commissioner Glenn. Commissioner Lehman. Here. Commissioner Long. A quorum's present.
Madam Secretary, the record will reflect that Commissioners Long and Cassiopo absences are excused. All right, we're going to go to public. Do we have any members of the public who wish to comment at this time?
Something that's not on the agenda.
Something that's not on the agenda. Thank you for the clarification. Okay. All right, hearing none, let's move on to possible action on the approval of minutes. Has everybody read the minutes?
Yes.
A motion? A motion, please.
I move to approve the minutes of December 18, 2017 as presented.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right. Do we need public comment? Okay. All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. The motion carries. All right, we're going to move on to modification to the agenda. Does any of the staff members or commission members wish to modify the agenda?
No modifications to the agenda.
Okay. Commissioners? All right. We're good on that one. So we're going to go to agenda item 3A, introduction of Andrew Mendez, the new youth program supervisor. Dan, will you come up and do the honors, please?
So Dan Arp, Recreation Superintendent, and I just like to introduce our new Recreation Program Supervisor over the youth program, Andrew Menendez. He started with us right at the very end of December, so he's gotten about 5 weeks with us, and he just hit the ground running, getting us ready for summer. He's doing a great job so far. But this is Andrew, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Hello, my name is Andrew. It's nice to meet everyone. A little about myself. I used to work for the City of Concord and Camp Concord in South Lake Tahoe. Worked as a camp director there for a few years, but started also as a part-time employee, working as a camp counselor, program director, and waterfront specialist. Excited to be here, and thank you.
Welcome aboard. We look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you, as well.
Okay.
So I just wanted to let you know, Andrew will be overseeing our before and after school program, all of our spring, summer, and winter break programs, and over inclusion. So it's a really important job for us, and we're happy to have him here.
All right, on to agenda item 3B, the Park/Program of the Month, presentation and discussion on AmeriCorps Vista projects and programs supporting the Carson City Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department. And I apologize, I'm not even going to try that name till somebody tells me how to say it. So I do apologize, I don't want to butcher your name.
My name is Haya Hogebeck, and I am hired as an AmeriCorps Vista for marketing and outreach, and I do a lot of design as well. Before I had this job, I had my own business as a freelance animated filmmaker. Having my own business, I worked a lot with marketing, and I did a lot of social media and design, so I try to take those skills into my job here. I made a little overview of some of the things I do and work on. Before I was hired on, there was not really one person who did these things. A lot of people did it on the side, which made it a little like inconsistent and chaotic. So I try to have it more organized. I like make up a list of all the places that we can market, like TV stations, magazines, just have them all there. And then for the website, which is a big job, it was just kind of the same thing. Everyone kind of did the website on the side, which made it not look very consistent, not look very professional, and it was also very hard to navigate. So this is the how the old homepage looked. And just for example, if you want to go to the aquatic facility and you see this, then most people in Carson City did not know where they had to go, where they had to click to get to the aquatic facility. So this is what the new page looks like right now. It's a little small, but right here is the aquatic facility, and like all the links are right there inside. Go and look at the website in real life because it looks looks more clear if you look at it on the actual website. And the same for the park pages. They all looked kind of different. Some of them, like this one, has a lot of information. Some of them didn't have any information. And also there was this divide in parks and open spaces, which makes a lot of sense if you work for Parks and Recreation. But for the people in Carson City, when they go to a nature area, they don't know if it's a park or an open space. So we try to kind of make them look the same and have the same format. So have like a big picture and then like all the amenities that are at the park. Just have it look kind of standard. So this is like what an open space, one of the open space pages looked like before. It had not very much information, and then the new one has kind of the same format as the parks. I also do a lot of I make a lot of videos and do graphic design. Here are some of the flyers I've designed since I worked here. And then I also designed the activity guide, try to put in like bigger pictures and make it look professional. We kind of found out that videos from the audience get the most engagement, much more than pictures or text or so. We try to make a lot of video projects, and one of the projects we're doing is actually a program that Dan came up with. It's called the Program of the Month, kind of like this. We pick like one program that the Parks and Recreation has to offer and then make a video about it. I can show you like 20 seconds of one of the videos that, if that's gonna work. I don't know if there's going to be sound, but we'll see.
You should bring your microphone.
Oh, okay. Let's see how it...
On the court and
like something like this.
anytime you work with little kids, it's rewarding. When you teach them drills and you see them absorbing the drills and actually seeing it on the court and just seeing those smiles, that's what makes it so rewarding.
Well, you can see the rest on the social media. So these videos are doing really well. The last one we made was about the pickleball program, and it's on about 1,400 views right now, so that's really great. With the social media, I try to use the 80-20 rule. A lot of organizations try to push a lot on their users of the social media by like just saying buy this, click this, sign up for this, but you kind of lose your audience. People are going to unfollow, so I try to share interesting things that people want to see, like, and that's why like video content and photos and just interesting things usually engage the audience more. And I also started an Instagram and a YouTube. And then the last thing I do is I'm helping the Foundation for Parks and Recreation with their website. It's a little outdated, this is what it looks like right now. And that was, so I'm trying to modernize it a little bit, but also there's no button that says donate, which is really important for the foundation because that's one of the big things they do. They try to help projects that are not a nonprofit to raise money. So it's not done yet, but this is what I'm working on right now for their website, and I got it on the page for the Junior Ranger program, which is one of the projects that Danielle's working on. They're going to help raise money for. So that's a nice bridge to Danielle.
Is it okay if I ask a question? Oh, okay. I was just wondering, I was looking at the new park page, and the scroll on the left-hand side, it says, for example, parks and places, and then it says trails, parks and open spaces, and then it goes Ash Canyon, Blackwell, Moffett. I'm confused as to, because it's not in alphabetical order, so if I was trying to find a particular park or trail, how would I use
Actually, if you click on Parks and Places, that big button, then you will get a list that's all in alphabetical order. It's still work in progress, so the plan is to have it all in alphabetical order.
Great.
And then you can do all the Parks and Places, then you can do the open spaces and the neighborhood parks, and you can still make it like smaller lists to search better.
Great.
That's the idea.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Danielle. I am the Community Education Coordinator, and my service to Vista, I am working on creating an interpretive program for Parks and Rec, which is completely brand new. There was nothing in place yet for an interpretive program. And so that's going to include student lesson plans, field trips for schools, and also interpretive events, which I have already led a couple, which I'll get into too. And since this is AmeriCorps, I have to make the program sustainable. So I have kind of a cheat sheet set up for whoever's going to take over leading educational events. So as you can see, it's broken down by location, and then you'll see assets that are at that location and what educational topics could be discussed there. So for example, at Carson River Park, it's a really good place to talk about watershed and to teach about Mercury or Superfund sites. And then the last column there is about topics and events that have already been covered at that park. And so I have lesson plans for each of those events that you could even just go straight to from looking at this cheat sheet. So far I've led 3 interpretive hikes. The first one, which is on the left there, is the sunset hike, which I did at Prison Hill. And for our first hike, we got 8 people to come, and I was advertising through flyers on social media, so our Facebook, our Instagram, on Carson Now, the Nevada Appeal, and then I also went around town and I put flyers up at all of our trailheads. So we got 8 people for the first one. For the second one, the Fall Colors hike, which is on the right, we got 16 people, so we doubled. And then the third one, and the most recent, was the Winter Wonderland Walk, and I had 34 people on that one. So it's growing exponentially for sure, and word of mouth is helping. A lot of people have a lot of positive feedback about the hikes, and the numbers definitely prove that this is something that we need in our community. And these are some flyers that I have made, and these are all upcoming for the spring and the summer. The first one there for Valentine's Day is actually this Saturday. We're going to be making birdhouses with children for free this Saturday in the Bonanza Room in this building. And then I'm also hosting a gardening workshop with the Beekeepers of Nevada and the Greenhouse Garden Center. We're leading a hike to look at the grazing sheep in the spring, a wildflower hike, a trail yoga hike, one that you can bring your dogs on, one that you can bring your children 5 and under on, and then I also started a bear aware program. And at the end of the summer, when my term is actually over and I'll be gone, there's going to be a Park Ranger Speak series. And so there's going to be an event every Saturday where a park ranger is going to give a presentation about something that's relevant to our parks and open spaces. So these are the 4 that'll be this summer. The first one will be about what rules and regulations are in place at our parks and open spaces, but what kinds of things that you can do, how can you recreate there, and some of the issues that park rangers see. And then we'll also do one on plant identification, and then there's one on wildlife safety, so predators versus prey, and then we're going to do another bear aware. And all these programs are going to be supplemented with physical resources that I've been working on fundraising for. So we're getting tracks, scat replicas, pelts, claws, all sorts of stuff like that, which is pretty cool. And I'm also planning Kids to Parks Day, so make sure you write this down and come to my event. It's going to be at Silver Saddle Ranch, and Kids to Parks Day is an event that's hosted by the National Park Trust, and it's a day to encourage everyone in the U.S. to come to a park to recreate and to get children involved with the outdoors. So I'm going to have environmental education booths from Muscle Power, the Department of Transportation, UNR Cooperative Extension, the Department of Wildlife, the Department of Agriculture, the Beekeepers Group here in town, Envirolution, which is an environmental energy company that's actually based in Reno, but they have a stationary bike that you can pedal on and light up lights to kind of teach kids about energy use. And there's also going to be a face painter. We're going to lead a guided hike. There's going to be kites to make for free, raffle prizes, yard games, and we're going to lead a mountain bike ride too. And there's food trucks. So the only thing that costs money at Kids Park Day is the food trucks. And like Haya said, I'm also starting a Junior Ranger program. So the Junior Ranger program is divided into two parts. There is the 5 to 9-year-olds and the 10 to 13-year-olds. And when they get started with the program, which it actually starts on Kids to Parks Day, after Kids to Parks Day wraps up, we'll have our first Junior Ranger event. And all the children are going to get what I'm calling a Junior Ranger Adventure Guide, which is a booklet that I've made that they fill out at each of the events. So I just included a couple pages for each event from my adventure guide to kind of show what the kids are going to be filling out. So the first one is the Leave No Trace hike, so we're going to talk a lot about what the principles are of Leave No Trace, and then there's going to be questions about safety, and we're also going to talk about how we utilize sheep in town to reduce fire risks. And the second event is the Wildlife Walk, which is going to be on Prison Hill, and that's the event where we're going to bring out all our claws and tracks and pelts, and then we also have some invasive species resources too that we can use so that they can learn how to identify species. And then the third event, which is for the 10 to 13-year-olds, is nature navigation. And so actually I had a student from the high school make me an orienteering map of Riverview Park, which is on the left there. And so the kids are going to learn how to use a compass and how to use a map. And then if you can kind of tell, there's some points on that map. So once the kids have an understanding of how to use a compass and a map, they're going to try and go to one of those points so that they know exactly how to do it. And then the last event is Environmental Career Day. And I'm going to have several environmental professionals come, and they're going to talk about what they do in their career. And we're also going to do some environmental testing. So we're going to do soil testing, water testing, probably a little bit more botany education too. And then obviously there's going to be a lot of discussion about being a park ranger, since this is going to be park ranger led. And then at the end of the booklet, there's an interview you have to do with a park ranger, and then the pledge. And once you say the pledge and sign your name, you get a Junior Ranger badge. And so I have been fundraising like crazy for Junior Ranger. And this is just an example. I made a sponsorship package so that people could donate for specific items or specific events, which actually helped a lot, because I had a couple businesses just say they wanted to sponsor one individual event. So like the wildlife tracking is completely paid for. And so far I've raised, this number is actually higher now because today I got another donation of $450. So I've made about $2,000 for Junior Ranger so far through local businesses and also some physical donations as well. And I've also been fundraising for my special events too. So this weekend, Meeks Lumber was the sponsor for our birdhouses. They donated all the materials. And we also had some mountain bikes, which were just sitting in storage and hadn't been looked at in a while. So Bike Habitat is coming, and they are going to fix up our bikes for free for Kids to Parks Day and for any other future mountain bike events that we want to hold this summer. And the DOT donated us helmets for all the bikes that we have. And I'm also getting Michael Hull Subaru to donate some money for the kite materials for Kids to Parks Day. And I also have been running the Instagram. And I've been running, it's hashtag Carson Trail Contest, so if anybody wants to submit photos, you should, because you can win a gift card. So the first month I did it, it was a Blue Zone Sports gift card, then Sportsman's Warehouse, and then the Fox Brew Pub. And this month it's actually a $50 gift card for Red's Old 395 Grill. So all you have to do is post pictures on Instagram with our hashtag of a park or open space that you've been recreating in, and then you enter for a chance to win the gift card. So I'm really working on engaging the community in our parks and open spaces. There's a lot of health benefits to getting outside. So that's all I have.
Sounds like you two ladies have been very busy. Thank you so much. Are there any questions from the commissioners? Jen, do you wish to say anything?
You know, I do. These ladies have done more in 6 months than I think some employees have done in years, and we're so excited to have them here. They're really filling a need for our department that we haven't been able to fill. We couldn't afford to do it, and they're really doing it in a creative way, and we're so lucky to have them. We still have funds for a third AmeriCorps, a volunteer coordinator. We've really struggled getting one on, but you can see, how much they can bring to us, and it's really good work experience for them that hopefully they can bring into their careers, and we're just so happy to have them here.
Excellent. Thank you. Do you have a question?
I was just going to comment that I definitely went through all the websites and everything else. What an improvement, and thank you. It's very much appreciated, so just wanted to give you a big shout out there.
Any, any public comments on this or agenda item A? All right, hearing none.
So does that mean you guys are going to move here when you're done? Because this community has the best parks and open space. Oh, just thought I'd throw that out there. You said you were going to be gone in August. It's looking like a good place.
So I actually moved here from Wisconsin last summer, and I've been joking with everyone that I know more about this area than I ever did in Wisconsin. So
Tell all
Robert?
your friends.
What part of Wisconsin?
I am from Waukesha, which is 20 minutes west of Milwaukee.
Wow.
I went to Madison.
All right. Hiya, Danielle, thank you so much for your work, and we'll keep track. That didn't sound right. We'll look forward to what comes next. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to agenda item 3C, presentation by Gillian Mandel on her Girl Scout Gold Award project at the Linear Park. Come on down.
Hello, my name is Jillian Mandel, and I've been a Girl Scout for 10 years, and I recently finished my Girl Scout Gold Award project, Friends of the Linear Park, in September, and we're just giving you a recap of what went on and how things went. So, Friends of the Linear Park was a project I created in 2016. Many months of hard work and determination. I successfully completed this project on September 30th with a handful of people who volunteered their Saturday, and we cleaned up the linear park. We placed 3 raptor poles, a bench, and a garbage bin along the way, and I'd like to have another event like this next September, somewhere around that time. We'll see how it goes. So, my generous volunteers. A lot of people donated monetarily so I could buy the bench and t-shirts and snacks. Casanelli Landscaping offered to dig holes and put the bench in for me and the raptor poles, so that was very generous of them. Nature's Bakery gave me the garbage barrel to stick along the path. Muscle Powered volunteered their time and contributed monetarily. Individuals donated the metal posts and the materials for the raptor poles, which was very nice. And Carson City Parks and Rec let me use the community cleanup trailer, which definitely helped us out. I had to learn a lot from this because it was I did that all by myself. So I had to set a date. That was the biggest thing I learned, was set a date, so it forces you to finish what you set out to do. Be persistent. If you got to keep, asking for help, or, say, hey, did you get that done yet? Or, you know what I mean? Be gracious. So always say please and thank you, and, thanks for helping me out. Always ask for help when you need it, even if you don't think you need it, because you think you're awesome, but you're not. Use everything to your advantage. Everything is a resource, so always use your resources wisely. Don't procrastinate. I learned that the hard way. And always say thank you. My mom and I walk down this path every day with the dog, and we watch people sit on the bench and say, wow, thank you so much for putting this out here. We really appreciate it. And thank you for putting this garbage bin out there. And people always throw things away, so that really just made my heart happy. So here's some pictures of Castanelli putting in the bench and the crew and the raptor poles. There's my grandparents and Vern here. And that was the first sighting of a raptor on my poles, and it was actually pretty funny because he started on the first pole and then he hopped all the way down the path from pole to pole, and it was really cool. So yeah, that's my project that I finished, and I'm very happy that it's over.
But we're very happy you did it. I have a question.
Yeah.
You were talking about hula hoed. What's that?
Hula hoeing, they have a lot of invasive weeds on that path, so hula hoeing is, how do I describe it? It's a hoe that you just, it's a type of hoe. Yeah.
I just had visions of you guys out there with hula hoops.
That would have been fun.
The same vision.
Yeah, that would have been a lot of fun, though.
Maybe next time.
Maybe next time, definitely.
All right. Do any of the commissioners have any questions? Go.
So do you have the gold award?
Not yet.
I
I'm
was
waiting.
going to say, I'm looking at your shirt, but which one is that?
No, I have my silver and my bronze, but I don't have my gold yet because I had to do this presentation, and then I have another presentation for Girl Scouts next May, sometime in the next year, and yeah, that's when I'll get my award.
Well, I'm sure glad that you stuck with it, and it's really well worthwhile.
Yeah. Blood, sweat, and tears, let me tell you.
Robert?
Yeah, you mentioned one of the lessons you learned was being persistent, and you gave a little bit of an example. And so I was going to actually ask you, it's one thing when people are getting paid to do something, and you are persistent with them,
Mm-hmm.
you'll usually get a response. They're getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
It's another thing when you're dealing with volunteers. And so I was wondering if you developed any tricks or secrets of the trade in terms of how to be a little bit pushy and persistent when, they're not working for you, they're volunteering their time.
Be obnoxious about it. Not too obnoxious, of course, but, make sure you email them every day until they respond, or call them and say, hey, how's it going? You got that thing for me yet? And it's just got to keep at it. Never stop.
Any other commissioners?
So did you video the raptors? Do you have any
No.
video that could be added to the website, to your park?
Once I see another raptor, but no, it was kind of it just happened and we weren't prepared for it, so yeah.
It's pretty exciting.
It is, it's pretty snazzy, it's cool.
Really want to thank you for your efforts.
Sure thing, anytime.
Yeah, very much appreciated.
Vern, you have anything to say?
No, it was just very much of a pleasure working with Jillian. She did a great job, and once she finally set that date, things moved quickly.
Yeah.
So you're going to let us know when your next event is?
Yeah, I just gotta get through this semester first, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. All right. Are there any public comments on this item? Well, thank you so much, and we look forward to working with you again in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much for letting me do this project. I had a lot of fun doing it.
Excellent. We like to hear that. Thank you. Let's move on to agenda item 3D, review, discussion, and possible recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to submit a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant application, approximately $73,388 city cash match, and an $8,400 city in-kind match for a paved path rehabilitation in Long Ranch Park. Jennifer, you're up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I'm going to keep this really short. I know we've seen this project at least a half a dozen times since I've been here. Basically, you know, we have about $500,000 in needs at the Long Ranch Park to remove and replace paved paths that are, you know, beyond repair. So we have a wonderful, I guess, little seed money that the Board of Supervisors has provided us, and we're trying to leverage that funding into as much as we can. So we do have funding available, but it doesn't really give us what we need, and we're trying to, you know, no stone unturned with any funding sources. So we did try for a Recreation Trails Program grant. We were unfortunately unsuccessful. We're going to try for land and water conservation funds. I've been successful at other agencies in working with this funding source for this particular purpose, so we're very hopeful for that. It's a really lengthy and arduous application, so a lot of times a lot of people don't apply just for that reason, and it requires a one-to-one match, which is also very difficult for people. So we're very hopeful, and we just would appreciate your support to continue to try to get additional funding for the needs at Long Ranch Park.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions or comments from the commissioners? Lori? Commissioner Bagwell?
So when you do land and water conservation fund grants, what conditions may occur that wouldn't in your regular grants? I think it's important to put on the record that, you know, what potential deed restrictions or other things can happen when we accept this grant, because one of the things I'm really learning that all grants are not created equally. And oftentimes when we're accepting something, we don't recognize that we're really making a commitment not for just today to fix X, Y, Z. We're actually then going to do some deed restriction or requirement that will obligate that land potentially for many years, right? And so I think it's important that we, you know, discuss that and put that on the record.
Thank you, Supervisor Bagwell. We have received land and water conservation funds at many of our parks for other projects. As part of the commitment to receiving those funds, you have a deed restriction and a commitment to maintain the life of that project for typically a 20-year period. So we will be making a commitment, should we be successful in receiving that grant funding, to making sure that we obviously maintain that area, and that also what's at the park stays at the park. So it preserves and protects the park through that deed restriction, so you don't go and sell the park for development, or you don't sell it for other purposes that are already there. Since we're already built out and we're already compliant with that park master plan, I don't see any concerns about that deed restriction and trying to make that open and available for the public in the future. And because we have a good comprehensive CIP program, I'm hoping we can stay on top of our maintenance a little bit better than we have at this location, because it is very significant. It's $500,000 in needs through that entire paved path system, and it's literally falling apart. And we don't want to create an unsafe situation for the public, but we need to do our best to try to be creative in our funding and try to take what taxpayer dollars we do have, which is not obviously enough, and try to leverage it and find other funding. But it does create a deed restriction on that land for parks and recreation purposes.
So I'm more interested on this one. So let's say we were successful, received the grant. What's the useful life for what we're going to improve? Because my concern is, again, that we're obligating that we will continue to maintain that improvement. And so if we have to maintain it for 20 years, but the useful life is 10, what's the answer?
So there is some flexibility with land and water, and they typically look at the project and a typical useful life. So if you were looking like a piece of playground equipment has usually a 20 to 25 year lifespan. So we make sure that that deed restriction fits the project, and we can work with land and water, and you work through the National Park Service on that before that goes into place. A project like this would have probably a 15 to 20 year lifespan for that type of pavement replacement, which is about, and I think Commissioner Curtis could probably help us, how old is Long Ranch Park? And when were those originally constructed?
I think it was started in about 1996. And there was, I can't remember exactly when, but there was one kind of overlay done on most of the trails out there, but it was just the same material and everything, so obviously it didn't last very long.
So
I can't remember when that was
So to give
done,
you an
but-
idea of how long those have lasted until now, that should be about representative, unless Commissioner Lehman, I'm sure, I mean, you live out there as well.
Yeah, I mean, it started in 96 and finished up in about '02, so some of the paths are 15 years old. So I had a question about the 500,000 figure. Would that get things up to, is that just enough to get us to where we want to be, or is that like replacing and having us back to square one, brand new paths?
So we hired Loomis and Associates. We knew the paved paths were just, beyond repair in some areas. We were concerned about potential safety issues. So we hired them to do a pavement condition assessment of the entire path system. And they've built it out for us. If we did the entire thing, it'd be $500,000. It'd be removing and replacing some sections. It would be just some patching in some areas, but it would really breathe a new life into it. It wouldn't remove the entire path system and replace it with all new pavement, though. It wouldn't be entirely new, but it would be a significant improvement, to address any of the potential safety concerns that we've had.
And how much, I know that little segment that got knocked out by the flood's been done, which looks great.
Correct.
How much was that segment again? Just that chunk?
I don't know offhand.
70?
You don't know. I don't know offhand. I can follow, I don't have that with me, but I can follow up with you and let you know what that is. Yeah, it does look good. So that $500,000 is, not including that section that we use, through the FEMA reimbursement.
Yes, I have a question on map E.15. I'm just kidding. Sometimes I know I get very detailed in some of the stuff I'm looking at, but I'm just kidding.
Is this an action item? Do we need a motion on this? Somebody want to take a stab? Lori?
Myself, but I'll do the motion for you. I recommend that we submit for a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant application and recommend approval by the Board of Supervisors for the paved path rehab at Long Ranch Park.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion and comments? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. The motion carries. All right, thank you so much, Jennifer. We appreciate that.
Thank
Your hard
you.
work.
We
One thing I
appreciate
do
your
want to
support.
say is, I've always been just in awe of how determined and how doggedly your staff goes after these grants. Not too big, not too little. They go for them all, and I have to applaud that.
Thank you so much. We have to get creative, and we have to try to find a way to fund these things, so.
Just, when would that grant be awarded if we got it?
That's a great question. It's always a $1 million question with some of our federal grants. Sometimes you get the award right away and the notice to proceed right away, and other times it's 6 months to a year later. So because the funding available for our match is in this fiscal year, we're hoping to get the award at least by the end of the fiscal year. We want to make sure we get that money rolled over as match. And I know, finance will support us in that decision, so we'll make sure that that's available. And then I'm hopeful every year in our CIP, we can start plugging away and budgeting a little bit of money every year, toward this project to try to get it going. So it would be great if, and I know we have a future item about our CIP budget, but that's another good opportunity to talk about our investment in our paved paths.
Thank you so much. Let's move on to agenda item 3E. This also is for possible action. Review, discussion, and possible recommendation to the Board of Supervisors regarding the fiscal year 2018-2019 Capital Improvement Program budget request and priorities for the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department. Jennifer, please tell us more.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. We are in the middle of budget season, and capital improvements are very important to this department and something that we've had a lot of discussion about, at least since the last year and a half that I've been here. And our staff has been really amazing. They're working on our asset management that we've discussed a lot, and we are really making headway on that. So you'll see a lot of new additions to the CIP list that you didn't see last year, as we've been doing our asset management and discovering the condition a lot of our equipment, our fleet, and then a lot of our parks really need some reinvestment, and we have some significant needs throughout the entire park system. So this is not everything, but it's a snapshot of what our needs and priorities are. And I do have other staff here available, so if I'm not able to answer your questions about maintenance needs or items at the pool or things of that nature, we have some staff here to hopefully answer all your questions. But I did want to point out just a couple of things in your attachments. You'll see this sheet with the blue that looks like this, and this is what was funded for this year, and it was more funding than we've seen in over 10 years for capital improvements. So I really want to thank the Board of Supervisors. I want to thank you guys for having the advocacy and the support that you provided us last year. And I really hope to keep that momentum going and continuing to go over reinvesting in our park system. So you can see a lot of projects that are funded in this fiscal year, and these projects will get done. There's, Golden Eagle Lane might not get completed, this year. That's probably one that will roll past the fiscal year. But and the Fifth Street Trailhead is in design. The Centennial Sewer Project is done. The polycap coverings for the outfields are in progress. We've replaced computers. We're working on the load monitoring system at the theater. I mean, all of these projects are really significant. I just approved the purchase order for the two bridges at Mills Park. These are really significant and making a huge impact to what we're doing. So we hope to kind of continue that conversation today to what the priorities are moving forward for fiscal year 19. And it's really exciting to see that. We also received new equipment. So there's a mower in here. We're going to be replacing the surfacing at Centennial Park at that playground. The money that we had wasn't enough for an entire new playground replacement, but that's one of our newer playgrounds that really is in need of rubberized safety surfacing, so we're going on that as well. So while that's not complete, that project is very far into, moving in with design, and that's a whole process. But these are some significant projects that we've been able to do. So is there any questions on this list before we move forward? Okay.
Anything significant in the undesignated?
The undesignated money went toward the Centennial Park, the sewer project. So that was a very expensive project. Well, I wish we had that available. I'm very glad that project was done, because that concession building would not have been able to operate any longer without connecting into sewer.
Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? All right.
No, okay.
All right, moving forward.
So let's move forward to the bigger sheet. Don't get sticker shock when you see the total, but it's a two-sided sheet. We tried to make it a little bit user-friendly for you, so you had it divided up by category. So we have information technology needs, equipment, infrastructure preservation, buildings and facilities. So to try to kind of lump those projects together, once our asset management is done, this list is going to be huge. It's going to be much, much bigger. But the staff has done a really good job. I'm meeting with them tomorrow after I get your feedback today, so we can further work on our priorities, and then our capital improvement project requests are due Friday to finance. And so how that goes further is then all the department heads sit on that CIP evaluation committee, and we all try to work together on needs throughout the city before it goes to the Board of Supervisors. So it was really a good process last year. Obviously, we received a lot of support from other departments in our CIP requests, and I'm hopeful that'll continue. So if we want to focus on the FY19 column, you can see what our requests are. Obviously, this is a 5-year sort of plan, which is required by law that every department has, and the city as a whole has a 5-year CIP plan. But we'll be requesting quite a bit of things. Some of them are safety related, and those are in yellow. Did you want to walk through every category? Did you have specific questions? How would you like me to divide this up for you?
Well, yeah, just, there's one here that doesn't have anything.
And some things don't have amounts. I just want you to know we're waiting on quotes. I didn't want to put something in that wasn't in reality.
Yeah,
This
the
is still a
FCC
very
wiring or-
draft document that we'll be working on. And I know we have some things, like last night, the redevelopment committee was so generous to identify some funds toward the theater. So because we have that, we already had some money set aside for the theater as well. Now we have, a third dollar amount that we'll be able to know and we'll plug in to our CIP request for next year. So we are really pursuing, and with the support of Supervisor Bagwell, I know Ronnie Hanneman's been really supportive as well with RAC, but we not only want to replace the seats at the theater, we want to rip those out, replace those. We need to fix the flooring. We want to paint the entire facility while the seats are out. We need to address the acoustics. There's a lot of things while the seats are out that we can really take an opportunity to make right. In total, it's about a $600,000 project. So with multiple funding sources, we're piecing that together to try to make that happen. So that is one thing in our FY19 that, because we have those other two funding sources, that I would like to see incorporated into this.
Just to be clear, because talking about the theater, so you're talking about the 600,000 or whatever you would try to do next year or the next fiscal year, or?
I would actually like to do it the fall of 2018.
And I noticed the later
But
on
fiscal
there's
year
the
19.
orchestra pit. Is that not?
That would be a future project. In that $600,000, the orchestra pit would not be included. So it would include the seats, it would include resurfacing the flooring, sealing that and staining that flooring, because right now it's already cracking and crumbling, and once we remove the seats, it's only going to get worse. So very similar to what the library just did on their flooring. It would remove that 1970s orange carpet that's serving as acoustic panels along the wall. It would repaint that, and we put new acoustic paneling that's graded for the theater. So it would improve the sound, the experience. There will be less seats, but they'll be ADA compliant. It would really improve the overall experience in that theater.
Yeah, well, since we're talking about the theater, a couple things. Why not do the orchestra pit?
Well,
I know it's expensive.
It's just money.
No, my point being is that if we're going to be doing a massive project, is there savings either in cost or time by doing it all at once?
There would probably be savings just because someone would already be mobilized. We'd already have a contractor. We'd already have some things in place. So I think that's a great opportunity. We could do that. I don't have costs for the orchestra pit, so I'm not sure exactly what that scope of work and what that dollar amount would be, but we could look into that and put that in our considerations also.
I would just encourage, if we're going to be doing a major project, whether it's at a field or whether it's at the theater, if there's any other ways to improve or piggyback on that project all at once to do it, I have a lot of regrets and reservations on how the MAC ended up getting done. And I think there could have been things that could have been, if we thought it out in advance, we could have done it a lot better. So that's one statement, or question/statement. The other is, how long would, for the theater, would it be taken offline, approximately?
I wish we had Eric Klug here, he would know exactly. No, it wouldn't be, I think it would probably only be about a month. I don't think,
41 days.
yeah, I mean, we could work on how many construction days, but I don't
Construction
think-
estimate, but then we add a few days just
Yeah, I
'cause.
believe it's less than 2 months is the project, so it's not too significant. We would pick a time of year that would have the least impact on the theater, and I know Eric's already identified all those windows of time. So we would definitely work with our partners, and if anybody needed to be relocated temporarily to another facility, we try to help and support them any way we could.
There's a couple that I'm not sure I saw listed. We've been talking at the foundation, in fact, one of our board members is here, representing the tennis group. Are there any plans to, don't take the practice wall down. I used to use that all the time. But, no, the question is about the condition of the courts and FEMA, et cetera. Is there any chance anything could be done to deal with some of those courts in the coming year?
Thank you, Commissioner Curtis. We are very aware that the condition of the courts are in very poor condition. At least one of the courts will be replaced through the FEMA process in Centennial, or is it two? Oh, it's two. Two, correct. Two, hold on. So there will be 2 courts at Centennial Park replaced through the FEMA project. We've identified $50,000. If you look under infrastructure preservation and go just a few lines down, you'll see we put $50,000 every year towards sport court resurfacing. Yeah, so that would either be tennis courts or basketball courts, but we realize that we need to be doing that. I did meet with the tennis folks a while back, and we are eligible, well, a nonprofit would be eligible, so possibly the Parks Foundation, or even if there's a nonprofit tennis group, they could apply for a USTA grant. So United States Tennis Association provides matching grants for resurfacing tennis courts. And it doesn't usually fund the whole thing, but they do help contribute. So when I was at Washoe County, we worked with the local tennis folks, the city, or the county wrote the grant, and they helped provide the match toward that grant. So you can get sometimes $20,000 to $25,000 toward resurfacing some of those facilities. I really would like us to do that and try to get creative, but having that $50,000 might be able to help serve as match as well toward those projects. And that way it's not just on the foundation to come up with the match for the grant.
What's our time frame for the tennis courts? Do we have one, or are we just waiting for FEMA?
For the FEMA stuff, it would probably be in the spring. For that location, I believe we have to have all the projects done by May, so it would be before May, at least for the FEMA portion of the projects.
Would that bring the courts up to a, what do I want to say, to a condition where people could play tennis safely and happily?
Yeah, it would be completely resurfaced, so those would be in wonderful new condition. We do have a crack in Roscoe Park, and that has happened as well. So this money could go toward, any of our sport course facilities. Another thing that we might want to pursue is a foundation that I worked with at Washoe County funded the resurfacing of all tennis and basketball courts in the entire Washoe County. So it's something that we might be able to approach them and see if they'd be interested in doing that in Carson City as well, is resurfacing all of them. So then maybe we could take that $50,000 and spend it somewhere else if we can get another funding source, another person, or another support for that project. Sure.
Robert, the orchestra pit is 3 from the bottom of the page there, and it's 400,000, and it's slated for fiscal year '23 because we had the infrastructure fund that we did, and we had reserved in the plan of expenditure of 500,000 if available at the end of that project life to be able to potentially work on that. And if I recall the discussion on it, it really was a phased approach because they could do that orchestra work from the other side. So they really could be 2 distinct projects, because the odds of us finding another 400,000 outside of the infrastructure account's pretty, I'm gonna be rolling up the sleeves to get the theater seats. So just kind of want to prepare you for that, but it's a good question and a good thought to say, do you get any economy by putting it together, right? But just wanted to let you know it's 400,000 and it's slated for 23.
Hey, Jen, one thing caught my eye, removal and replacement of the picnic shelter at Roscold Park. What is the condition of the current picnic shelter? Is it still safe to be used? Have we roped it off? What's going on?
It's still safe. We were concerned about the structure. You can see it's settling. It's got a lot of significant wear because of the material. It's wood. It's not only old, but it's just fallen apart. It's beyond its useful life. We did have the building official go out to check it to make sure that it was safe because we were concerned about it. It is still safe right now. It is at the very end of its useful life, though, but before it continues to deteriorate, we'd like to take it down soon, just before it continues to do that. The building official did provide us some recommendations on what we might be able to do, but without knowing if there's wood rot or things like that inside, some of those options that they provided us might not be an option as we get into it. But, it's probably not going to last much longer. So it's a very popular park. That pavilion in particular, you have birthday parties there every weekend. It's a first come, first served facility. It's not a charge facility, and people really enjoy that park. So we know if we do have to take that down, that we need to find a way to replace that pavilion. So that's in there. If that's something that you feel is more of a priority, we can definitely move that up. So.
Well, I guess I'd like to understand the maintenance shop, Mills Park new, for 400,000. You have slated for 19 versus the 150,000 for the picnic shelter. I'm glad the building official said it's safe.
Yeah, we wouldn't allow anything to be open and available if it wasn't. So,
Right.
but it's very close to. We're gonna have to take it down soon. So
I'm just trying to understand that priority, why you wouldn't put the 150,000 in 19. And I guess I need some more explanation. I might as well do what I would do at the board level.
Sure.
I think I need a little more explanation of the maintenance shop at Mills Park.
So we have a lot of maintenance needs. A lot of our equipment, and I want to be kind of global in this, and I'll probably have Dan come help me so I don't say anything wrong. Dan's much better. This is his bailiwick. But we have a lot of things like our maintenance equipment that is over 20 years old that hasn't been replaced. We have a lot of equipment that we're trying to replace and reinvest in our equipment, but the equipment is parked outside. It's not being covered. These are trying to resolve some other issues to not adversely affect our equipment and what we're providing. So I'll have Dan come up and we can talk about maybe what we're envisioning at Mills for that purpose. And then, if we have questions on some of the other structures that we are proposing to protect our equipment so we get longer life out of them and things like that, we can definitely talk about that.
Yeah, the Public Works Department has a lot of areas where they're storing equipment. Isn't there any way that you guys can kind of share some of this?
They're maxed out in their space with covered.
Want to have some of your storage on site at the different
Some of it would obviously be at the corporate yard, and then some of it would be at the other locations. So oftentimes at our sports complexes, we use Connex boxes and things of that nature to park in equipment. But, Mills is a very popular park, and we have a lot of maintenance needs specifically, and that's where a lot of our special events are, and a lot of support is needed. So, we can have Dan come up and talk about what he envisions, and Dan Cassens is our park operations manager, and he's doing a great job, and he's really trying to work with our staff. His team is heading up the asset management and everything all the efforts that you're seeing. So they're doing a fantastic job.
Dan, we don't mean to put you on the spot, so thank you. Oh, we do?
We'll start out the dollar amount. I believe it's way off. I'll tell you that. I just got some quotes in this morning on dimensions. What I think that dollar amount was envisioning was a much larger shop than what our needs are for that facility. The quote I got is less than $100,000 for a very similar sized shop. If you guys are familiar with Fuji Park that we just put in, I think it was about five years ago out there. Serves a great purpose for covering equipment. Currently, when we have our like our carnivals, our fairs, etc., as you guys know, Mills Park being centrally located means it's centrally located to everybody, and everybody goes to that park whether that park is officially open or not. So we oftentimes, knowing our equipment is very valuable and then keeping it in good condition, we will truck that in and out every morning because we don't have a place to lock that up where it's stored safely. So we do have, vandalism, tools and things like that. That gets a lot of that stuff is stored in plumbing chases where, we have to remove it if we have repairs or anything to do. Very limited on what we do have, at that facility to keep tools that we need on a daily basis as well. So the dollar amounts are off on those, so rest assured it's much less than 400,000. As Jen said, our fleet is old, it's deteriorating, and we are trying our darndest to protect every new piece of equipment that we invest in. We're replacing seats, things like that are seeing exposure, belts, tires, stuff that probably we could get a longer longevity out of. Have we ample place to store it that's covered and secures those things. As you guys know, the summer months are just as hard as the winter months are, on equipment. So that's where we are with the shop and storage. You'll see a storage building very similar in there, but it is a three-sided storage building that we want to put at the corporate yard, also to put in there. So. Did that one not make the list? Yeah, that one came in. That one is just a three-sided barn, so it doesn't need a concrete pad or anything. It came in actually very close to the 40 by 42 at Mills Park, which would actually have to be heated, have power, etc. Run to it. This one, we got pretty good location at the corporate yard. Donna, your question was, can't we share, ample storage? And we don't. The streets is maxed out as well, like Jen said. And we lost when we did animal control. When we took that piece of property, that our corporate yard shrank. With shrinking that corporate yard, we lost 3 old structures, actually 2 old structures that we could easily park 8 vehicles in the winter months for snow plows, etc., that were never replaced. So those vehicles, now all sit outside and see the elements all year round.
Dan, is the corporate yard, the 3-sided bays, or is that around 100,000 then too?
Yes,
okay.
That came in right around there.
Okay, so you'll see that.
Actually, the Mills Park one came in higher than the corporate yard one.
Fourth wall.
It was the 4th wall on the floor, so that's where it got really expensive.
So you'll see that that's the first line item under the buildings and facilities section, and it was 250, but that's about 100,000 now. So when we put these together, we hadn't obtained quotes, and we're trying to work through a lot of these things. So we'll have more final numbers by the time they're due on Friday, but I thought at least if we could talk about the project priorities and what your direction is. You'll see a lot of maintenance equipment, and Paul Griffiths is our mechanic and shop coordinator, and he's really headed that up for all of our rolling stock and getting a handle of everything that we need, and under Dan's direction has been so great. So you'll start to see a lot more of the equipment and trying to come up with a plan for replacement, because we do have a large fleet, but it's a deteriorating fleet. So we need to slowly replace it because we can't replace it all at once.
Okay. Drinking fountains, you're trying to slate is this for replacement of drinking fountains? And so it's 7,000 a year for the next 4 years. What are we trying to accomplish with drinking fountains under infrastructure? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 down.
So I think the drinking fountains are past carryovers that have kind of always been in there and asked for but never really approved, so it's been constantly moved over as a, a priority. What we've seen is we've been able to handle, most drinking fountains in-house. The trend lately is people
No drink.
they carry massive
I was gonna
amounts
say.
of water everywhere they go.
No more drinking fountains
Our
unless it's a
drinking
dog
fountains,
one.
they
have,
use the- in the
water
bathroom
fillers for the
that
bottles
they have
now.
been. You'll see, I think in the Schultz Ranch bathroom design that we're gonna be putting out there will be one of our first water fill stations.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an item that's always been in there and just kind of carried over, but never really approached and improved, so.
But we could modify it to be water fill stations instead of water fountains, is that?
Absolutely, yeah.
Or what about dog fountains for like the dog parks?
Yeah,
Just-
upgrading all of
Okay, Donna, I got that for you.
I'm just very interested in making sure that it's just not just a laundry list, is that we're really honing in on the items that we want to stress to try to fund, because again, we compete in the larger scheme of the city, and we're really working hard at the board level to establish the asset management, and you're going to see when that all gets done that, we need 50 million a year just to keep up with the entire city, which is impossible. And so, I know we're undertaking the project, but I'm not naive on what the results will be. And so I don't mind having lists of items, but I really don't want them if they're never getting funded and you're never really pushing for it and you're never, then possibly that belongs on your asset management to say, we don't want to forget about it, but it's really not mission critical. Because that's what I'm really interested in, honing through this list to say, kind of like I did last year, it's okay that things stay on the list, but what are the really 2 or 3 things that are overreaching to the parks, recreation, and open space? What is it that I need to be charge up the hill for, right? Is that the good way to say it? What am I trying to, and I really need your, right, what are the real priorities? And I really need your guys' help to say, what is it throughout the park system that we think would be the greatest gain for efficiencies, effectiveness, recreation? What are some of those? And I know for me personally, I'm admitting to everyone here, I've been pushing for the last 2 years, and I'm working really hard to do the theater seats, because I think it's something the entire community, at somewhere during the year, I think they use the community center. So I think that's again, it's really a heavily used facility, so I want to do something for the masses. It doesn't mean I won't do something for a small group, but if we can do something for the masses, I really want to do that. And so I'm looking for you to help me say, is it really the maintenance shops that are more important, or should I really work on the Roscoe Park cover? Or should I don't know, MAC floor? So one of the other ones, because the other one that's on here, you have 400,000 for the MAC paving of the parking lot. I'm like, well, we're being honest with one another, right? It's nice to say, is that the dirt area we'd like to pave?
That's the dirt area, and we had to get a special use permit, and we committed that we would try to find the funding to pave that lot to meet city standards.
Well, we can keep committing a little longer.
That is what it is.
Yeah.
What are they gonna do, arrest us?
Well, no,
Right.
I'm just saying that I'm trying to understand, and so
Yeah.
I understand why you've
Sure.
put it there, but the reality is, why wouldn't I fix the Roscoe Park
Picnic
shelter before I would worry about
Well, and we'll replace
that?
the shelter. We are not going to fix the current one.
You know what I mean?
Just to be clear, yes, but
Yes.
I completely agree.
And I think,
Since we have Dan up here, maybe
Yeah,
we could
what is
talk
it?
about park maintenance, and then
Right.
we can talk about, I think, those mission critical items from department wide, and I can give you my opinion, and I'm happy to share it, and and then hear what you all have to say about that direction.
You guys have some.
Robert, I'm sorry.
Joe Bob. Did you have a question or comment?
I had a couple of questions. So two things listed here. Ball field lighting at Pete Livermore and Centennial, and laser grade infields on Centennial.
Wow.
I just want to know what was wrong with the lighting, because I know it's functioning. And it's very expensive, listed here. And then the second, I know we had talked about both here and offline, as well with Dan, about laser grading infields as well as maybe outfields. But I was always under the impression we were going to be looking into Governors before Centennial. And so I was curious why Governors isn't listed there versus Centennial.
So with the reason why Governors would be kind of pushed aside, and thank you very much for the CIP program last year, we were able to purchase a new infield groomer that has laser leveling capabilities. It's a small scale machine which works very good on Little League fields. The work that we put in with the flood rehab of those fields that we did in the spring, and you probably noticed, a very significant. Now, laser leveling, we're just talking just the dirt, the skinned infields of an infield. We're not talking about the actual whole field of play. Yeah, just so you guys understand. But what the reason why is because the work that got put in there, the capabilities of this new machine that we purchased, and we think in basically the condition in which Centennial is in at this point. Any of you that go out there onto those softball fields, and you guys all know the extensive amount of play that happens at Centennial from April through October, just beats it up. So once we do the laser leveling there, I believe with the machine and the staff that we have and their abilities, we'll be able to maintain that condition for quite a long period of time without having to hire a contractor to have to come back in and do it. With the laser leveling also comes addition of new material that we've lost over the course, which we addressed at Governors when we did, and Edmonds when we did the FEMA projects in the spring. So
the lighting?
The lighting would be to actually upgrade that lighting system, very similar to an automated system like we have at Governors, so that we can program the lights. The lights aren't left on accidentally. Also to upgrade the bulbs and the energy efficiency of that system, because it is probably the most used system that we have.
It's really about, energy efficiency, like Dan said, the amount that is being paid and the amount of savings that we could have if we upgraded to an LED system would be significant savings for the city. Just like citywide, we're doing energy audits and energy efficient projects. This would be a future project to be able to save a lot of money.
Would it pay for itself?
It probably would eventually. We could work with a company to do an assessment on that, and usually they'll provide that for you for free to see if that's even in the realm of possibility. But I think that's the right thing to do. If we're wasting money on utilities that could be saved, I think that's the right thing to do. And typically, it's a little bit better for surrounding properties, and it's not, they meet dark sky standards with new lighting, and it's not so intrusive, to all the neighboring properties. So I think in the long run, it's the right thing to do at all of our facilities, is to have that upgrade as a goal. It's just a matter of when and timing.
On the playgrounds, which is under infrastructure, looks like the fifth one, it says 1 to 3 a year, and you've got Mills, Sunset, and Park Terrace, and you got $300,000 a year. Now, is the $300,000 for those three parks or one playground? So which one's first, Mills or?
They're all pretty bad, to be honest. So that was our goal, is to replace anywhere from 1 to 3 a year. I think the reality would be if we could do 1 a year, that would be amazing. But it's about $300,000 if you really do it right. You remove the structure, you get rid of that horrible bark fiber, and you replace it with rubberized surfacing. And we want at least 50% of all new playgrounds to be universally accessible, and that takes more space. So you're creating a bigger footprint for your playground, and they're about $300,000 for that equipment. So last year we received $180,000. It wasn't enough to do a full playground, but we had some newer play equipment, and we'll go in and add the rubberized surfacing, which will be a huge improvement from a maintenance standpoint, because all of that bark blows out into the fields. It's acidic, it ruins the grass, it gets in the mowers. I mean, it's a problem. And it's a safer facility just by replacing it with rubberized tiles. So that'll be a huge improvement. I really would like to try to go toward $300,000 a year investment in replacing our old playgrounds, though. I think that's the right thing to do for the community and the public. I would probably pick Mills Park and the more busier parks, just because I think that has a greater impact, since they're all basically, poor condition. So not that any neighborhood is any less value, it would just have a greater impact on the participation based on the numbers. I mean, look at how many hundreds of thousands of people use Mills Park every year just for the special events, let alone drop-in use every day.
So the new replace monument signs, is that to do the new sign design that we saw at the,
Uniformity.
yeah, is that to get you, so that's four from the bottom?
Yeah, I know.
I'm going to give you your cute, you're right?
I know,
line
I
numbers.
should number these better, so it's a little easier.
okay.
So, no, where you see signs for replacement and new, that's the $30,000 a year we thought we would invest toward replacement and having new signs, and that would be the new sign plan that you guys all
Would they all
reviewed.
be uniform?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm looking at the one that says 10,000 per, so that's why I'm trying to understand the difference.
Correct, so that wasn't in FY19, it'd be starting next year. We have a lot of facilities with really outdated signs, or they're beyond repair, or some locations that have no signs at all. So the monument signs are the concrete entrance signs that you see when you go into the park. The other signs were more the kiosk signs, the regulatory signs that were in that sign plan to remessage it. We could definitely combine those two line items together. It's really the same idea, but the concrete monument signs are significantly more expensive than any of the other signs that we would purchase. My preference is definitely those kiosk and those directional signs to create that positive messaging and let people know where they can go and safely recreate and know what to do, and taking like the 800 signs that are at Riverview Park and make it into one nice kiosk when you enter. That's that envision.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just add a comment to that, and then I got another list here. We did talk at the last meeting about the possibility of getting help with some of these signs too, like through the schools or, businesses, that kind of thing. So maybe that would help fund some of that. But it's not for next year anyway, so.
Yeah, and I think we can, now that we have a plan and we know what that looks like, we can definitely work with our partners. I could see that volunteer coordinator that we would get as a big part of that, because I would want them to solicit adopt-a-park people and businesses to reinvest in our park system, maybe not just through labor, but also through donations and funding. And that person would be really key to making kind of those partnerships happen and help pay for those things.
Yeah, on this aquatic center, there's so much that needs to be done there.
There is.
And I know we've done a lot already. We replaced the roof and all that good kind of stuff. But I guess I'm wondering, for example, you have the, somewhere here, I saw where the restroom was going to be refurbished or something. Is that more important than, say, resurfacing the decks at the swimming pool, or, I don't know what replaster gunite in pools
but
but hopefully somebody does.
I can talk pool all night, so it's the one thing I can help you out with. So we have significant needs at the pool. We hear a lot from the public. They come to the Board of Supervisors, they come to me, they come to the staff on a daily basis with concerns about the pool. It's a great facility. Our participation is at more than $100,000 a year at that facility. It provides a regional service, so we have a really high use at that pool. I don't have to tell you that, Donna. I know you're there every day, probably. Well, you're a regular user, if anything, so we appreciate that. To resurface the pool is the plaster in the bottom of the pool. So it's a gunite surface. Over time, after, if you don't resurface that and replaster that pool, it'll start to lift up from the ground and you could lose your entire facility. It's probably one of the most important things that needs to be maintained. So you'll see we have it for next year. It hasn't been done since the 90s. It's well over its recommended life for plaster. So yes, I think that's a higher priority than the locker rooms. However, we get more complaints about the locker rooms than anything else. That and the deck and then the temperature of the therapy pool. Those are probably the three things that we get the calls most about. Yeah, see, well, good, I'm glad to hear that. So, the deck is a concern. Right now, it just looks bad. It's not a safety concern by any means. It probably never should have been painted, and what we'd like to do is do like a diamond cutting, and they do like a swirl. You can do neat designs, and then you don't need the paint anymore. So you can go into the deck. It makes it so it's not slip, and it looks really nice, and it's a good aesthetic as well. So it's something we would like to pursue, and it would really help it out. I do think of those two things. If you had to talk about the plaster or the deck, the plastering, I think, is still the number one priority. We received $100,000 last year in our CIP toward improvements in one of the restrooms. We're working with Western Nevada Supply right now to make that investment in one of the restrooms, but I'd like to try to do about $100,000 a year investment into the aquatic facility so we can really start to work away at this stuff. If I had, $5 million, I could just dump it all into the pump room and you wouldn't even see it. I mean, the pool is something that always has to be reinvested in, and that's just the reality of swimming pools. So we need to try to make a constant, consistent investment in the aquatic facility from now on. We just do. We've let things go too long.
I got to tell you, up here, it sounded like you were saying duck, not deck.
Deck? Oh, I'm sorry. Please let me know.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out, what about this
I can
duck at the
mumble, so
pool?
you just have to yell at me.
Commissioner Bagwell, do you have more questions? Okay, I do. I have a couple questions, Jennifer. Trees, $3,000, is that enough?
No.
Okay. Because that's not going to get us very many trees.
All that really was trying to have some consistent money when we have trees that are diseased or dying to do replacements, so we don't lose our overall tree canopy throughout the city. So it was just, that's the whole intent for that line item, is just to replace trees. Things happen. They get old, they die, they get diseased, and this is a way we're always having a good, consistent investment in our tree canopy. So that's really all that line item is. We would love to have more trees, and I'm sure Dan's staff would just love to prune more, but
12 years on the Shade Tree Council,
I know.
so, yeah.
You're keeping an eye out for those trees.
Then, just one question back to the Ross Gold Picnic Shelter. Have we thought about, when we put the replacement up, about putting some panels up to cut the wind, or is it just going to be open as it is now?
I think we are envisioning an open-air pavilion, but we could definitely look at other designs and try to consider something else.
Is that one out at Fuji, it does have some panels, not a lot. It's across from the pavilion on the west side, and it makes a nice break.
Oh, okay. That's great. We can definitely look into that when we consider the design.
Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? Jennifer, do you have anything? Dan?
Were you going to give us your thoughts? Is that?
Oh, so my thoughts are definitely the theater refurbishing, we'll call it. It's not just the seats, it's sort of a larger animal that we would like to make happen. The swimming pool, and our maintenance equipment.
The equipment or the build?
Don't make me pick, you'd have to ask Dan. Is it equipment or the enclosure?
At this point, I would have to go with equipment over.
The structure. That's what we did to Public Works too last time, so.
Yeah. I mean, when you have equipment that's more than 20 years old and is well over the hours being used than recommended, and it's costing more to repair than it would to replace it, at some point, and then we're at that point.
So isn't there also a safety factor involved when it gets past its life, a piece of equipment?
Yes.
Okay. Commission, do you agree with Jennifer's assessment for the top three? The theater, the pool, the maintenance of the equipment?
So just to
What's,
be,
which equipment?
the 204,000 in equipment list is, you're saying, is more important than the 100 and some odd thousand and whatever you just got on the new bid. So you would take the 200,000 in equipment before you take the 200,000 in the building. Is that what I heard?
That's kind of what I heard.
I want to make sure that's what I heard.
I'll let Dan tell you what's most important on that equipment list for his needs.
You're right.
So I would take everything,
All righty then.
if possible. We will, I mean, and that's part of the process too, with, getting your guys' feedback and then meeting with Jen tomorrow, and keep everyone's, opinion in consideration as we move forward in making a decision. We're not limited to 3 submittals, I don't think, as far as CIP.
No,
So
but you're
yes,
not
we
gonna
will
get more.
push for, probably equipment over a structure at this point. If you look at, like, 2 of our largest mowers that we have were purchased in 2002 and 2004. Usually manufacturers, after about 15 years, you can't even get parts for those machines anymore. And that's what we're running into, obviously, with the majority of our fleet. So I don't want to replace it all at once, because then we run into the same problem if we don't have an asset management program in place, which we are putting in as we go forth with the equipment, just like Jen said. But I think our needs, happy guys and good equipment to work safely and give the community a good product is probably a little bit more important at this point.
Jen, do you have enough from us to go on, or do you need some further input? What do you need from us?
Well, the staff is going to be meeting tomorrow, so we can further, thanks Dan, have our priorities before we submit. Our submittals are due on Friday to finance, and then after that, we'll have a workshop with all of the departments so we can all fight for the same pot of money. But it was very respectful, and it was really great. You can see we got a lot last year. They understand that Parks has a lot of needs, and not being mandated, we don't have a lot of other funding sources that other departments might have access to. So I'd love to know what your priorities are as a commission, so we can work through that, and we'll fine tune these numbers for our submittal. And then I can bring those messages forward too, when we're meeting with all the departments about what the priorities are. Obviously, safety issues are very important, but, our first priority is to make sure that these parks are open, that they're safe, and that they're clean. And that's really getting back to basics for me. And how can we do that? And the simple things like mowers and maintenance equipment, and it doesn't sound really exciting, but it's so essential, and we can't do those things without equipment that's working. So it's just long overdue, and we want to make sure that, we're giving our staff the tools and the equipment to do their job.
Commissioner Curtis, do you have any preference as to what should take priority?
Well, I don't mind going along with the maintenance, because I understand that. The theater is the most heavily used facility according to our master plan, so I think we should try to go ahead and do the seats and at least begin that project, and do the requisite other, the changes on the acoustics and that kind of thing, and make it nicer, so maybe it's more attractive, we get even more events. Then the pool. I think getting in the pool and seeing these little black things floating around, so if we can do things that, help with the surface of it, and then on the decks, I would say those 2. And then what I would like to see, if anybody's going to be gracious, would be, doing that Mills Park playground.
Commissioner Bagwell?
Yeah, I would see that, you're looking at the theater, and the discussion on the pool really becomes, a broader picture to me is, so let me say it the right way. I don't want to invest dollars for naught. So if I'm going to lose the pool, I don't want to, if it makes sense, I don't want to put a $50,000 Band-Aid and find out the following year that I really needed $500,000 or I have to close the pool. So I'm very concerned that I understand the pool needs and what stages it has to have for funding, so that either at the board level we're putting enough dollars aside, because if it's going to accumulate up and suddenly you say, okay, I need $3 million to keep the pool, I want to know. I think I need more answers on the pools is all I'm saying. So I'm more than happy to agree with you that the pool should be there, but I still think we need I need a bigger understanding. I need more information on the pool.
I can provide you, outside of that, maybe we
Okay.
can meet and we can talk about the pool and the needs and what needs to probably be done when, and, what are the biggest concerns. I can tell you, though, from experience, if you ignore replastering, it's tragic. It's millions of dollars if you don't keep that up on that. A lot of stuff is cosmetic. The stuff in the locker rooms, it's functioning, it works. Does it look great? It's been cleaned and it's old, and it doesn't matter how much you bleach it, it just looks old and dirty. So some of the locker room stuff is more cosmetic. The pool resurfacing, the plaster in the bottom of the pool is what I'm talking about. That is structural. If you are talking about like a house and what you're trying to provide and keep support on, that's part of your structure. So I see that as an essential to the structure of that facility. But I can provide more information for you and try to give you some comfort with what
Again,
that
I
is.
just don't want to put dollars somewhere.
No, I don't either.
And then you go, oh, great.
You don't want them going down the drain,
I don't
so
want
to
them going
speak.
down the swimming pool drain, I guess, right? You want to know that it's thoughtful, it's appropriate, and it will give me another useful life of the pool. I just got 10 more years. I guess that's a better way for me to say this, is I'm interested in knowing if I put $350,000 in the pool,
This is
that
gonna save us millions.
That's right, and just got you 10 years more on the pool, if that makes sense.
And I'll follow up with you outside of this,
Okay.
and we can kind of talk that through in more detail. And
Okay, I'd appreciate that.
But the replastering definitely has that in mind.
Okay.
It really does, because if that is ignored, then where are those 100,000 people going to go? Because there's not going to be a pool, and then you're going to need $20 million if you had to reimagine the whole facility. I'm not trying to be
No.
dramatic, but that's just what
The reality
the
of a
reality of
swimming
swimming
pool.
pools. And when you're in that business, it feels like a money pit. You're always putting money in. And we don't want to Band-Aid it. We want to be proactive if we can. It's just really hard. It's a very caustic environment. So things like telephones and computers, we're constantly replacing them just because of the air and the chemicals and the nature of that facility. So it just is how it is, unfortunately. But we want this facility to be available, for future generations. So there's some big ticket items that we're going to have to look at. One thing is land and water conservation funds is the only funding source that I'm aware of, federally, that can go into swimming pools. It only can go toward the outdoor pool. So we'd really like to look at maybe next year's budget, identifying some potential match for a land and water conservation fund grant, but for the outdoor pool. And perhaps when we resurface that pool, we look at that grant source for that. So there's some opportunity, but it's just really limited with that kind of funding.
Commissioner Lehman, do you have any questions or concerns? Okay, do you have enough from us, Jen, to go forward?
I do, thank you so
Okay.
much.
Is this an action item? Do we need a motion? Pardon? Okay. All right, well, if we don't need a motion.
If you want to take action, you're more than welcome, but I don't need
What's the
any.
pleasure of the board?
Oh, are we supposed to? or-
If you need any more direction from us, feel free to.
And if,
Okay.
as you have this, just this, especially this week, if you have any other ideas or questions or concerns, feel free to call me or email me, and we'll make sure we include.
Is there any public comment on this item? Well, come on up. Come on up. Come on down. Could you state your name for the record and turn the mic on, please?
Oh, it's on.
It's on?
What? Cheryl. I'm Cheryl. I'm new here. Knauf. Hi. Oh, really? Knauf. Hi. So, the equipment that you're talking about buying, you're considering the equipment storage first, right? No?
He said the equipment, not the storage.
Right.
So he wants the actual equipment versus the storage.
But isn't storage more important than the equipment? I mean, if you're going to invest in equipment, don't you want to have a safe storage for it?
Absolutely, I understand where you're going with this, but our needs, the age and the condition.
Dan, can you come on down to the mic, please? You can even sit over here if you'd like.
Okay. So the reason why I prioritize that way, and that is obviously, up for objection, whatever, but the condition that our equipment, our fleet, our mowers, et cetera, is in is at, as Leanne mentioned, almost an unsafe state. We have a lot of items that are spending more time down and need repair than we're actually using them out in the field by the time we get replacement parts, et cetera. So we do play musical mowers, et cetera, and cram everything in where we can as far as exposure. But yeah, long term, we need to start looking at storage structures, et cetera, for the new mowers that we do, the new equipment that we do purchase out in the field. So priority-wise, we still have a job to do, and we need to get out there and get that done, and we need to have safe and decent equipment to do that with. And right now, we are running the useful life right at the very end on a lot of this equipment, so, yeah.
We just don't want to waste money on buying something new and then letting it deteriorate.
Absolutely. I'll give you an example of, the last couple pieces of equipment that we have purchased, we've become very creative in where we have stored that. We've actually pulled older items or other items in there and into our regular maintenance shop if we don't have a large machine that needs to be worked on, and there's square footage that we can put in, and we see a pending storm or freezing temperatures, et cetera. We shove everything in. If something breaks, we've got to pull that stuff out, let him work on that in the day, and then move it back. So we are creative with what we're doing as far as moving and protecting our new investments. But I just want it on the radar as well that we do need, as we purchase these investments, we do need to look at investing in a building as well, to house those things.
You said you lost 2 buildings to animal control?
Correct. They built a new, the Humane Society took over, and the city built a new animal facility, which is state of the art. It's a great facility. It was long overdue for the community. In doing that, we took a section of land at the corporate yard that was used for storage and had older dilapidated kind of 2-3-sided structures, lean-tos, so to speak, for storing. Those got torn down in order to make room for that facility. So.
It's all about safeguarding people's investments,
Mhm.
it's easy to
Absolutely.
want to pinch pennies to save a dollar, but, long term.
Yeah.
So, thanks.
Dan,
Answer your question?
Okay. Dan, if we were able to put one of those structures in the budget, what would be your priority? Would it be the corporate yard or Mills Park?
It would be the corporate yard because I can fit more stuff in there and during critical moments. Currently, we're in the process of transporting stuff to Mills, and we're used to that. It's a necessity, but it would be, I guess if you had to weigh the two, the one at Mills would be more of a luxury than the one at the corporate yard.
So we'll continue that discussion with staff tomorrow when we meet to prioritize the CIP, and just keeping that in mind, that if we were able to find the funds for one of the structures, maybe we prioritize the corporate yard first, and then at least start to try to protect all of that new equipment we're trying to get and trying to replace.
Okay, so thank you so much, Jen. Dan, we appreciate your time and effort going into this.
Yeah,
All right.
hope you get it.
Jen, you're still up. We're going to go to agenda item 4A, the director's report. What have you got for us?
I think I kind of mentioned a few of those things. We've made some real headway on our FEMA projects, which is great. Riverview Park is done, Long Ranch Park is done, the trail near Moffett Open Space, Route 6 is done. We have Ash Canyon Road underway, a lot of the other road projects. Because of the warm weather, we're able to move forward. I mean, for construction, it's fantastic. For skiing, not so great, but we're really making, I know, right? We are really making headway. So thanks to, Vern Cron and Rob Fellows and everybody that's working on the flood projects. It's not easy. So it's a lot of work, and we're really making headway on that. I did report to you that we did try to go after Recreation Trails Program grant. We weren't successful for Long Ranch Park, but on the good note, we are pursuing a community development block grant for Long Ranch Park to replace all of the ADA access ramps, which aren't built to current standards, and trying to fund that. So we're trying to do other things like the Land and Water grant as well for Long Ranch Park. And then I think, Haya and Danielle did a great job giving you an update on programs and events. So I think you can see where we're headed on that front. And then you have the Board of Supervisors action items in your packet. So if you have any questions as well. Yeah, but that's it.
Hey, Jen, briefly, how's Bailey's Pond coming?
Oh, so Bailey's Pond. So we observed something in the pond, and we believe it's a iron-based bacteria. I didn't want to say that wrong. I had to look at Dan just to make sure. So just on the safe side, it's something that is naturally occurring in wetlands, but we want to make sure that that's what it is. So we do have the pond closed temporarily. We're working with NDEP, and we are getting the water tested. So we want to make sure that we rule out anything that would be a safety concern or hazardous to the public. So it's a temporary closure. We'll get it back open, but it's just the right thing to do. We really need to pinpoint exactly what it is in there. If anyone had fish, at home in their freezer, or just a public safety issue. We don't think it's a health and safety issue based on the research and the people that we've talked to about it, but it's better safe than sorry. So it is temporarily closed while we get the water tested. After we get the results of that, we'll come up with a treatment plan if needed, and we'll try to work through that. And we can update you as we progress. And obviously with the warm weather, people are very disappointed to see the pond close, and that's not something that we want to do, but it's the right thing to do. We need to make sure everybody's safe.
Appreciate that. I've just been approached by several individuals asking, so. Now
Thank you.
everybody knows.
Thank you for helping get that message out. We did do a press release. It was out in the newspaper. It was out on our social media as well. But, word of mouth is sometimes the best way you can tell people what's going on.
Moving on to agenda item 5, members' announcements and requests for information. Does anybody have a request, information?
I just had a comment.
Okay.
I just want to thank Mark or whoever for the artwork in here. I didn't think anything could beat Tahoe Clarity, but this is pretty good.
That's Sharon.
Oh, it's Sharon?
Yeah,
Okay, Sharon with the, commission,
Clear
okay.
that up right now.
But, I'd love to see fabric, with some of these designs. I think it'd be fantastic, but I'm enjoying it.
So that's the Carson City Arts Initiative that does these rotating exhibits, and we're so lucky to have them here. And yeah.
All right, I guess we won't have a report from our school board liaison. However, would you like to report on the foundation?
Yes, our January meeting, I wasn't able to attend, but they, instead of having a regular meeting, they did a workshop. And one of the board members made a presentation, a slide presentation of possibly what could be presented to some of the local clubs and social agencies in town to advertise who the foundation is and some of the things we've been doing. And I don't know if it's complete yet, because I would also like to see, some of the things that they could be doing. We want to try to encourage them to come forward and say, oh, maybe we could do that or do this. But anyway, so a presentation was made on that. And then the dog park survey was completed at the end of December, and the same board member went ahead and presented the results of that. We're going to discuss it at the February meeting and decide in terms of what we think the foundation, given the money that they have, could fund based on the priorities, and it seems to be an even match. So that's basically where we're at.
And I will tell you that I got to practice the road show with a group, and I used the cemetery project is the one that I selected and highlighted, that dealt with, we have we know who's in the grave, but there's no grave markers, and that the veterans, we can go to the Veterans Administration and they will provide the marker, but the spouse then is an unmarked grave. So I did a presentation for one section that we had identified for veterans with a spouse, and the group graciously provided us the markers for the 4 spouses. So I think that if we just get the message, and you make the message personal, that fits the organization and something they might be interested in funding, it's truly an easy ask. So I was real excited to please Melinda with the check that we have that whole section 1 then would be done with markers. So it's exciting.
Great.
I did meet with members of the Parks Foundation the other day. The Board of Supervisors directed us to pursue an agreement for the disc golf course toward assisting with maintenance of the facility. They weren't a 501c3, so they went to the Parks Foundation and said, hey, can we work with you? So we did meet with them, and I talked about sort of the parameters, and I'm going to be working with Iris on creating an agreement, and we'll bring that to you all sometime soon. And just having that partnership and that cooperation and that help, I know our maintenance staff really appreciates it. We already have, way too many acres than we can take care of. So having partnership as we have new facilities is really the way we need to go. And they've been great, and the Parks Foundation was really wonderful for kind of taking them under their umbrella, and we'll have a future agreement, a maintenance and use agreement for consideration.
Yeah, I just had one thing. We had Jillian come with her project, which was another great project by youth here, and I know my boy did his project in June, so he passed all his stuff last week, so he got his Eagle Scout.
Yes.
All right, let's move on to future agenda items. Any thoughts, comments, questions, concerns?
They're there already.
Yep, they're there, so we're looking good. All right.
Is there any additions to that? You have that, it's the last page in your packet for future agenda items.
Well, it was the last page.
Yeah.
It should, well,
Very last.
maybe it is.
It's the last one.
It's the other last.
Yeah. It looks like this.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
Yep. It's just my pages were all,
It's certainly fine through April.
yes.
So we have a chance next time to give you some more.
Yeah. It looks good through April at least.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Are there any public comments? All right, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion for adjournment. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Hey, Lori.